All right, we are breaking into regular programming. We are getting ready to hear from Colorado Springs Mayor John Suthers from the City Administration Building. Let's listen in live now.
Rating something that I have reiterated throughout the week. I am extremely thankful that the vast majority of our citizens who are expressing their outrage over the George Floyd incident are doing so in a peaceable manner. Particularly during the daylight hours, folks have been well organized, have been very peaceful, have been cooperative with police trying to get them through intersections and things like that. I think that that has gone very well, and I'm very complimentary of the police exercising appropriate discretion to assist them in the process of exercising their First Amendment rights. But unfortunately, for several nights now, as the night goes forward and gets later, the tenor of the crowd, and I think in some respects the composition of the demonstrators changes. And things have become more confrontational. We have had significant, mostly late at night, we've had some significant property damage, a community room window shattered, that was $1,500, armored vehicle damage to a windshield, that's $5,000, floodlights and mounts damaged, 8 Colorado Springs police vehicles damaged, 14 windows at the county courthouse damaged, 1 at the municipal court, and we have had 75 locations where we have cleaned up graffiti. So while I think we've been fortunate overall, we have incurred tens of thousands of dollars of damage to public property, which of course will be repaired at taxpayer expense. And I think more disconcerting, on a couple occasions late in the evening, we've had situations where folks have tried to take with their vehicles block roadways and have some inherently dangerous situations as a result of that. We've had crowds attempt to breach barricades. We've had rocks, bricks, bottles, and firecrackers thrown at police officers, not only endangering them, but also members of the crowd. Last night, a police officer was hit with a brick. And as I indicated, damage to some of our cruisers. So the bottom line is, despite, as I say, I'm very complimentary of the vast majority of the folks who are peacefully expressing their First Amendment rights, I do think in the interest of public safety, safety of our police officers, safety of the demonstrators, and safety for public and private property, it is necessary to impose a curfew beginning tonight, and citywide we'll have a 10 o'clock p.m. curfew, which will run to 5 a.m. I signed this order at 9 a.m. this morning, and I think copies of the curfew are available to you, and it will cite relevant sections of the city charter talking about my authority to issue the curfew, talking about the authority of to extend it, and I think also talking about the authority of the city council to review it and rescind it if they so choose by a majority vote. I did notify the city council. I've been in communication with them about the possible need for a curfew. Essentially, I'm acting on the advice of the police department. We've kind of monitored things each night, hoping that we would not see this continuing escalation later in the evening. But we are continuing to see it, and as a result, I have, in fact, issued this order, as I say, for a 10 p.m. curfew citywide until 5 a.m. You will see in the curfew order exceptions to it for a variety of public vehicles, paramedics, ambulances, things like that, folks traveling to and from airport things like that. So with that, let me stop and ask any questions that you might have concerning this curfew. We have a microphone over here. Anybody wants to?
Mayor, could you tell us about the curfew? How is that going to be enforced?
The officers will enforce it. If in fact crowds continue to congregate after the curfew hour in violation of the curfew, the police will peaceably, to the extent they can, using appropriate force, disperse the crowd. And so we hope we don't have to issue curfew violation tickets, but if we do, we do. I'm hoping that we'll have compliance, but we're not naive about it. Obviously, Denver's had a curfew. They think it's assisted them in some respect in terms of giving a message to peaceful protesters that want to be peaceful, don't want to be involved, that they're doing most of their protesting outside beyond the curfew hour, or before the curfew hour. And we're hope that will be the impact here, but we believe probably some people will violate the curfew.
Is media exempt from the curfew?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, that's a very interesting question, and I'm not sure that it's in the, let's tell you.
There's something about going to work or returning from work, et cetera.
I would certainly, it would be my intention that you would be exempt from it. I just, and I ask you to be I'm not suggesting you're not, but be as responsible as possible in terms of not helping to create the congregation of people beyond the curfew hours. But I think if you're out doing your job, covering someone violating a curfew, I think that's something I understand.
In cities like Denver, curfew hasn't exactly dissuaded people from staying out. What is your message to people who might do so? What's your reaction? Did you have hesitations seeing that some people did not respect that curfew?
Yeah, as I think I talked with some of you earlier in the week, why didn't you issue a curfew when Denver did? And we watched Denver's curfew the first couple of nights. It certainly didn't deter quite a bit of violence and destruction there. And so we decided to let things play out a couple more nights, hoping that folks would kind of get the message that if you want to participate in a peaceful protest, the time to do it's probably during the day in the early evening hours. But good things weren't happening after 10 o'clock. And that's my message today. There's a lot of people. I've watched families, participate in some of the demonstrations during the day, and they can do so safely. And I encourage people who want to participate in demonstrations to do so, but please do so at a time when it's the chances of confrontation are reduced, which appear to be in the day. And as the evening goes on, we've seen kind of each night, and you can observe this for yourself in the media, it's our observation that the composition changes a little bit. We've seen more Antifa flags later in the evenings and stuff like that. So I don't think we're naive, but our hope is that all those folks would have motivations, who want to protest, who do want to avoid violence, will honor the curfew.
You mentioned Antifa. During our broadcast last night, somebody flashed white supremacist, white nationalist hand signs. Are you seeing equal amount of those groups as well in these protests that would be for Black Lives Matter?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing, and I think that's a good point, I think what we're seeing is there's an element of causes who, obviously many of them may feel strongly about this, but they also have a broader agenda, whether it be white supremacist, whether it be Antifa, who have more of a general anarchist notion. and they seem to be attracted to the dark, if you will. Whether it's just harder to identify them, easier to do things without being seen, things like that, I don't know. But the composition of the crowd does seem to change. And I'm hoping that citizens who really do want to protest, want to do it safely and peacefully, will understand that after 10 o'clock is not the time to do it.
How long is this curfew in effect for?
Effect till Monday morning at 5 a.m., and it can be extended depending upon how things go. And we'll just have to monitor and see where we stand at the end of it.
Will there be any type of formal review of any part of the police response to the protest so far?
Sure. It's my understanding that some citizens have filed complaints or given us information about particular incidents where they thought the police were using inappropriate force, and those will absolutely be reviewed.
Is the city looking at revising its use of force policy? I think the last time it was updated was in 2018.
Well, are you more specific than that, like the use of tear gas, for example, or something like that?
That's one example.
No, it's pretty common. I mean, if you look at use of force across the country, what you'll find is that as people pose a threat to officer safety, other public safety, damage to property and things like that, there is a resort to non-lethal deterrence, and that is typically tear gas or rubber bullets or whatever. So I don't think that will be reviewed. I think, will continue down that direction.
The curfew applies just obviously within the city of Colorado Springs. Are you aware of the county? Are you guys coordinating with them for anything countywide?
We have certainly coordinated with the sheriff's department, but it will be up to the commissioners to see if they need to do something. I would guess that unless they have some reason, we are not doing this to discourage protests or anything like that. We're doing it just to deal with a particular situation that appears to be happening each evening at 10 o'clock. If that's not happening in the county, I don't know why they would be interested in a curfew. If perhaps because of a Colorado Springs curfew, people start going to the county, they may have to reconsider that.
Okay. And are you planning to meet with the protesters during the daytime?
I don't have any scheduled meetings with them, no.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's okay. Last night, I believe, in some of the video that I watched, there was Teller County Sheriff's labeled officers. Has the city asked for help from other agencies in our region in response to some of the protests?
I know we've asked for some help from the sheriff's department, and they've been very attentive to trying to protect the county courthouse. I am not aware whether either CSPD or the county sheriff asked for Teller County assistance. They may be. There's a regional, some of the regional task force are organized in such a way that officers from the whole Pikes Peak area are involved, so that wouldn't surprise me too much.
This might be something better answered by the chief. I just want to ask your reaction to some videos on the topic of use of force of a group of officers detaining a man. That was a Facebook video that circulated widely of some officers looking to swing punches, and some videos that we caught last night of a couple of news staff actually were being maced by a police officer, as well as a police officer holding a woman down and macing her in the face. I was just wondering if you've seen any of those videos and what your reaction is.
I've seen a video that I think they're talking about this one person that's down and officers are striking him. And I would encourage folks to wait and see what the whole situation is and actually what the officers are trying to accomplish. If a person is tightening up into a ball and is not, is being resistive to the police, they may be hitting certain muscles in the leg that cause you, by training, to unleash your body tension. So I wouldn't I wouldn't jump to too many conclusions about it. And I don't know about, I hope the media understands that if the crowd's been asked to disperse because of threats, some people throwing rocks and stuff like that, they're not going to be real selective in exempting media from the potential effects of that. I mean, I hope there's some understanding there that these guys are in a real tough spot, folks. This is tough duty to do it right. And I think they're trying very, very hard to do it right. Okay, yeah, one more? One more.
In the press release we were sent, it says the chief was supposed to be here. Is there a reason he's not?
Yeah, he is busy. I took up, we had a cabinet meeting this morning, and I took 2 hours of his time, and I think he needed to get back to some training things. So he's a busy guy. That's why he is not here.
And during that meeting, did he mention what triggered the assembly last night to be declared unlawful? I was just at the front of the line, and Sunday night, it was very obvious that bottles were being thrown at officers. I just didn't see that before they made the announcement, and I was just wondering if he shared any insight on that with you.
What I got was just a list of activity that took place. Fireworks were thrown at CSPD. Are you saying that you saw no fireworks being thrown?
What I'm kind of wondering is the timeline. So I definitely saw fireworks, glass bottles. I heard some rocks falling on the ground that were in the directions of officers. But what I was wondering is there was an announcement made that this was an unlawful assembly. And usually there's something that happens before that.
That's correct. It's my understanding that they wait for that sort of escalated activity to begin. Then they say this has become an unlawful assembly because of that use of force. So you may have missed a brick or something like that. That's what I'm suggesting. Okay, I appreciate, I know you've got other press conferences to get to, so thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, we have been listening to Colorado Springs Mayor John Suthers from the City Administration Building. Again, the mayor putting a curfew into effect that will go into effect at 10 o'clock tonight and will stay in place until 5 a.m. in the morning. The mayor taking particular time to thank the peaceful protests that have been happening during the daytime and the early evening hours, but the mayor citing certain elements that certainly have changed the nature of the protests generally after dark, that have become more confrontational with police, that there's been a lot of costly damage. The mayor mentioning tens of thousands of dollars to city police buildings, certain police vehicles, as well as city buildings. So he's citing a lot of property damage costs that will, again, come out of taxpayers' pockets. The mayor also talking about rocks and bricks and bottles and fireworks being thrown at police officers. That's another safety concern, and those are really the overarching concerns leading the mayor. He says, again, for public safety, for property safety, for protester safety, first responder safety, again, which is why he will put this curfew into effect. It goes into effect 10 o'clock each night until 5 a.m. in the morning, and it will expire Monday at 5 a.m. But again, the mayor said it could be extended. No problem. He also talked about certain media exemptions. It was interesting that the mayor didn't have a quick answer on that, but said that in general, if the media, if we are out doing our jobs, that likely we will be exempt from this curfew. He was also asked briefly there at the end about some of the video that we've been showing you. We did so this morning on News 5 today, and we will also, coming up on News 5 at noon, of police taking someone into custody with what appears to be officers striking the man. The mayor simply asking for all of us to reserve judgment until all the facts are out. He did cite certain police techniques that when someone is resisting arrest or is not complying with instructions to move in a certain way, that officers may strike them in certain ways to get their muscles to move. But again, the mayor pointing out these are challenging times for police officers as they try to maintain safety when people are not following their instructions to disperse. Even if the protest for the most part is peaceful, it takes one rock or one bottle and the temperature of that can change very quickly.